Hi, I'm Christopher Yordi, and I'm a PhD student in the School of Public Policy here at Carleton. Also a researcher with the CFICE project. And in a little bit of data gathering that I did prior to this event, I found that in 3 provinces in Canada, the most populous provinces, food security, as per the Health Canada website, food insecurity had gone up from about 8% to 12% in some provinces. And that was from 2007 to 2009. We're missing data, missing evidence perhaps for the more recent years yet, but that I think is characteristic of some of the extent of food insecurity in Canada and how it's growing. My question is, how do we characterize the vulnerability of Canadians? One of the groups that we've seen is most vulnerable is in the Canadian North, but what are some of the other dimensions of food insecurity in Canada? Is it linked directly to poverty? What are some of the factors that shape that? Are they the same people?
Well, there's certainly, Peter made mention of Valerie Terrace at the University of Toronto, who's one of the preeminent researchers in this field, and she certainly has dedicated many years to the proposition that the basic factor is inadequate income. And the fact is that as long as we're dependent on purchasing food, that is going to be the predominant issue. Behind that is the system which provides inadequate, non-nourishing foods for lower prices than highly nourishing, nutrient-dense foods. So that's the other. That's a quick answer.
I do remember out of Val Terrace's work that, and this may surprise people, that the working poor are a larger part of that population than people on income assistance. So it's issues of minimum wage really become crucial here. Right. Single moms and single parent families are there. Children are disproportionately part of the those who aren't getting enough food in Canada. So it's those vulnerable groups. Yeah.
In rural Nova Scotia, we used to say everybody's a bust radiator away from the food bank.
I would just add Aboriginal people is extraordinarily high, and people with health or mental health issues also very high, and that links to the income support level.
Disabilities of any sort.
Disability of any sort, yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Hi there. Thank you all very much for your presentations. It was great. My name is Jamie Hurst. I work for Ottawa Public Health. And I was just wondering specifically what sort of actions, policies, programs you see the local municipalities, local governments playing in addressing the issue of food insecurity.
There's work for all levels of government and all sectors, and in Ottawa Public Health it's interesting because one of the activities that's really spawned a lot of exciting activity at the municipal level across country is the establishment of municipal food policy councils, and Ottawa is just in the process of about to start a municipal food policy council, the Ottawa Food Policy Council, and those become a forum for the various sectors within the region to work together to address issues. And there's you know, you have issues around community gardening. You have I'm trying to remember the list. Kathleen and I are both on the steering committee that was part of a research project out of University of Ottawa that's leading to the establishment of the Ottawa Food Policy Council. And there's a lot of activities that can happen at that municipal level to deal with these issues. Ultimately, though, it's important to remember that given that these are income-related issues, I mean, municipalities have a role there, but it's higher levels of government that need to make sure the municipalities have the resources at that level. Did you want to say anything? You're looking at me, Diana, as if you're about to.
Well, I thought Kathleen was going to speak, but I just noticed that Vancouver Food Policy Council just adopted a strategy last week, so I think that's probably worth looking at. I'm sure you got lots of things to say, Kathleen, Just Food and everything you guys are doing.
Well, yeah, I think the interesting part about the new Food Policy Council is the breadth of participation from public health. I mean, Just Food is coordinating it, but the participation is from every sector. And I think that's what's going to make it possible to come up with creative different solutions. I mean, there's a sense in which, at this point, we're on this side of the mountain heading up. And until we get to the top, we're not going to be able to see what some of the solutions might be. But if everybody is talking together, then we stand a pretty good chance.
Okay.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It was a delightful conversation with all of you. My name is Chris Bisson. I'm an MA candidate here in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies. I recently had the privilege to be up in Mary's Harbor, Labrador as an esteemed judge on a crab festival. Barring their excessive use of Miracle Whip was amazing. But this speaks to, like, this crab festival was organized by the Newfoundland Fishermen's Union. And they recently implemented a new processing plant in Mary's Harbor. And an unfortunate thing going on throughout all of Labrador, South Coast certainly, is that a lot of communities are dying out because they can't support a fishery. But of course, Mary's Harbor managed to scrape by from the Fisheries Union. This a brief comment and a question, I suppose, mostly directed at Terry, but I want all your input is, first of all, the comment, I think, speaking to the importance of cooperatives and labor-owned organizations going forward and democratizing this process, because, I mean, we talk about democratization of this system, but I really, at the heart, I don't think we're democratizing unless we democratize the means of production. But my question is, despite the valiant effort of this fishery to eke out an existence and maintain their outport livelihood, there's still pressure from, for instance, the province that is talking about bringing processing to the island. We forgive you, Kathleen, as Labradorians. That's just a jab at Newfies, I'm sorry. But also even bringing it abroad over to Asia for processing. And I'm wondering, Terry, I mean, I know Nunavut has a very successful fishery up in Maine, and what have they done, if you know, to try and deal with the pressures to export the processing?
For the fisheries, not only in Nunavut but in Nunavut as well, it's emerging, and they have been trying to adopt existing and past experiences based on the larger fisheries that has happened in Newfoundland as well as on the west coast. And there was question as to whether or not the fisheries need to be relooked at and whether a moratorium should be put in place based on the very little knowledge that's available on the current stocks and what's happening. But my suggestion was that that further research is needed just to ensure that there isn't any preconceived policy put in place, such as putting on a moratorium. But with respect to the localized economies in Nunavut, it's all based on the local people who have knowledge of the area and that are trying to develop something that is based on what's been done out there. And this is, again, in the general context of things, when large agriculture and large corporations start dictating what diet or what food is going to be produced, it puts in the dangers as to what I can feed my family from the local bounty. And again, it's the general question as to how we can best develop that based on everyone's local input into how they're going to harvest or hunt or farm. So it's a matter of keeping in place the local expertise and ensuring that it's developed in such a way that it's sustainable. I think that kind of answers your question. Yes. The importance of diversity is important. And I've always suggested that what Inuit eat shouldn't necessarily be judged. Locally, the Green Party had almost adopted getting rid of their stance on sealing, because the movement was that the sealing was green, the stock was free range, and that it was just very sustainable. And this is what we argue in the Inuit culture, is that what we do is green, what we do is free range, and it's within localized stocks. So.
Okay, thank you. One more question, I think, and then we're going to have to wrap it up.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Leslie McKenna, and I work with the Carleton Centre for Community Innovation, which hosts the CFICE Secretariat. So I've been involved in kind of setting up this event a little bit and getting some of this set up for everybody to come today, and thank you for coming. Some of the discussions about fragility and resilience were kind of striking for me. Some of my family friends down in the Brockville area just suffered a massive fire at their small local family-run dairy farm, and not only did they lose all 130 of their cattle and their building and what had been produced of their dairy, but they also lost 50 years of breeding stock knowledge and development and all of this work that had gone into producing such a strong and healthy source of locally produced dairy. So this notion of fragility is kind of striking for me at this moment. What also struck me, this is a family-run business, but the two sons that are my age, in their early 20s, were kind of managing this business. One of them just had a child in September, so it's kind of a crisis situation. And what role, I guess, does the government play in ensuring resiliency in the face of crisis when we do have a small farmer or a small producer that basically loses everything in a single night? What role does the federal government play in ensuring resiliency, is my question.
Well, I'll tell you what they don't do. They don't decide that there's an epidemic of avian flu and kill every last chicken in the Lower Fraser Valley of British Columbia with all the bloodlines. They don't do that. You don't do, you look at a situation and say, what is the structural need here, and deal with it directly.
Thank you to Carleton University and to CFICE for convening this this conversation. I know it'll be the beginning of many more, and thank you so much for all of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to be here today. Thanks on behalf of the panel, CFICE, and again, the McConnell Foundation is very active and involved in this movement and supporting food innovation. I do appreciate the comment from a questioner here from FAO. We too believe that it's time to bring the corporate sector into into a constructive relationship with this movement and with government to move this forward. So thanks very much. Great.